Welcome to this week's market update. Remember last week we talked about the TikTok IPO. We also talked about sexy gold and also should you be getting into cryptos. Well, since that time, just 7 days ago, cryptos has gone up 9%. That is why it is so important for you to subscribe to this channel so you get this information so you can act on it and profit from it and don't miss out. So in this week's update, we are going to be talking about the potential lockdown, oh no, and how it's going to affect the markets and how you can profit from it, how the pandemic is affecting the aviation industry, and we got some very, very interesting news on that, and how the presidential election will affect the market. So how will it affect the market? Well, stay tuned because you're about to find out. Welcome to this week's update, and we are going to be discussing how will the potential lockdown affect the markets, and more importantly, how can you profit from it? That's right, it looks like we might be going into another lockdown. If you listen to the scientists, they have these big graphs of it going, you know, the death toll just rising. Now remember, this is all theoretical, of course, but the government has to listen. Otherwise, people won't vote for them. So, how will this potential lockdown, by the way, they're introducing or thinking about introducing a 3-tier system. And so if you just think about it if there is another lockdown, what do you think will happen? Well, what happened last time? So that is a good indication of what could happen. So for example, anything to do with what? You could probably fill in the sentence yourself. The leisure industry, right? We're talking about pubs, we're talking about restaurants, we're talking about anywhere, gyms, etc., where people congregate. Dennis, what are we looking at? We're looking at Wetherspoons here, right? People love going to Wetherspoons to have a pint. If you have a look at the daily chart here, you see this. This was the crash that happened back in March, quickly went back up, but since that time has really been doing what we call the buffalo formation, vertically down, and Dennis has drawn a couple of lines here. Now, if you're really going to be aggressive, then you could actually short the market at this point here. So think about that. Always use a strategy, of course, with a stop loss when shorting when shorting anything. Make sure the stop loss is always above, right? Because we don't want it to go up. We want this thing to go down. So shorting means we're going to sell into the market, and as it drops, then we're going to buy it back in order to cover our position. And that's the great thing about the stock market, is that you can make money not only when markets go up, but also when markets go down, and of course with the buffalo sideways as well. If you want to wait for a little bit, then we have a second entry point, which is up here, Dennis, so they could get up here and short the market. Now, what you could do as well is you could, and it's very unusual that I would suggest this, but you could do a small position here and short the market. So if it goes down, you'll make money on that short position. And if it carries on going up, take a second position. Okay, so position sizing is going to be very, very important. Don't invest too much money. Remember, we're only ever going to risk how much, Dennis? How much?
1%.
Thank you. 1% of your entire account. That's very, very important on any one trade. So if you've got 10,000, for example, the maximum that we're going to risk is, what's 1% of 10,000 is, of course, 100. But we're looking to make a lot more than that. So that's one thing. Make sure you put your stop losses in place. If you're getting in twice, your stop loss will be just above this line. What's the next chart we've got? I think we've got Whitbread. Whitbread again, leisure industry. If you have a look at this, since that crash, struggled to come back to the highs and really has just been going slightly down in a vertically downwards buffalo market. And here, it looks like the news or the potential has already affected it. I wouldn't get in right now personally. I like to get in at when I'm shorting the highest possible point, which as you can see on that line is at this point here. Make sure that you put your stop losses just above there. The other thing that we can do, of course, not just taking advantage by shorting the market, gotta love that when it comes to trading and investing, the fact that you can make money going down, amazing. Where else can you do this? We love that. Is of course hedging, which means that making sure that you also take some of the upside as well, which would be in gold. Now there's several ways you could play gold. This is an ETF, an exchange traded fund, ETF, which is like a basket of different shares or commodities. Here it's gold. And as you can see here, it's kind of, this is here, is this the weekly or the daily? The daily chart, just trending down here like that. not a bad entry point to maybe be going in. I would probably wait, and I know it's going a little bit against the trend, but the long-term trend, we are bullish on gold. And so therefore, I mean, maybe waiting for it to come down a little bit, Dennis, what do you think? Before getting in, or break the breakout. What do you think?
I think so. I think we do have a top back there in August. I think wait for like a 10% drop from that top, I think would be ideal. So we have a little bit of a pullback before getting in.
Okay, so waiting for a 10% drop. We had a roughly 10% drop here, so that would have been an entry point. Then it started to go back up. So maybe wait for it to come down a little bit and start building a position. That's what we're doing in gold. That's if you want to play it really safe. If you're a little bit more aggressive, you want to go for a little bit more, how about a gold mining stock? And I do think we looked at this last week as well, which is Barrick Gold. Barrick Gold has got very good fundamentals. I think we looked at the fundamentals last time as well. And this one here, as you can see, really much more stable than gold itself. But of course, it is very reliant on the gold price. You know, the higher the gold price, the more profit Barrick Gold is, of course, going to make. But here, if we were to draw a couple of lines like here, for example, and here, this is very much in a buffalo formation, and really a couple of days ago would have been a good time to get in here. So maybe wait for it to come down a little bit here. Never chase a stock. Never ever chase. Always get in at the price that you want. So just waiting for it to come down just a tiny little bit there, and then we will add to our position. All right, so that is that. Next. So how has the pandemic affected various industries? For example, the aviation industry. Think about airplanes. When was the last time you got an airplane? Even if you wanted to, did you go? How many times do you usually go? I'm on an airplane normally once every 10 days. And at the moment, I haven't been. It's been wonderful, actually. Haven't been flying, which is absolutely fantastic. But of course, ticket sales are down as a result. If we look at British Airways, and I don't know about you, but I put in BA, British Airways, and that of course is Boeing, so it's a different ticket because they merged with Iberia, I think, the Spanish airlines. So they are now IAG, so this is the International Consolidated Airlines Group. That is British Airways, okay? And if you think about it, it's a big problem. Now here, as you can see, the trend massively going down there on the daily chart. And if you were looking to short and make money going down, excuse me, it just needs to go up just a little bit to touch that line there. We never want to chase the price. We wouldn't want to short now. Okay, we would wait for it to go up a little bit to this area here before selling short. Make sure that you put your stop loss in place. Make sure you only ever risk 1% of your entire capital. But Dennis, if we look, I'm going to show you something really interesting. Dennis found this. Watch this. If you look at British Airways over the years, have a look at this pattern. This is in a massive buffalo. Look at this. Back in 2003, look at this. And that was, of course, 2003 was coming towards the end. Between 2001 and 2003 was, of course, the dot-com bubble. And then, not that that had anything to do with British Airways, but then we went into a massive bull market, didn't we? And look at that, going from a price of around 100 up to around 350. Can you imagine that? Now that would have been a good investment. Back in 2009, then again, obviously the financial crisis bringing it all back down, and then the start of another huge bull market going back up from 100 back to more than 300 this time, and coming back down again. Even here you would have made good money. You would have made over 100% here. So can you see that? Boing, 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 boing several times, and now it's back down to that level there. So interesting. I personally am not going to do it. The only thing is, though, it's British Airways, right? That's the thing. Are they going to let British Airways go bust? I don't think so.
No, it's a good question. I think that if we look at it now, all of the British Airways, and they're cutting so many staff. So they're really, what they're doing is they're creating maybe a more sustainable business for the long term, because they're cutting a lot of costs, cutting a lot of unnecessary overhead. So what I would say is the airlines that will survive after all this, they're going to be much better off potentially, and they're going to have a lot more ticket sales moving forward. But that is a little bit of a gamble, because we don't know which ones are going to survive. But yes, I agree with you. Like British Airways, will the government let them go bust? I just don't think so.
I just don't think so. So are you going to get in that? I mean, put your money where your mouth is. Are you going to get in? Look, it's right in the buying zone here.
It is right in the buying zone. Yes, I might actually. I have gotten into, we're going to look at that in a bit, but I have gotten into Scandinavian Airlines.
Okay.
That might be interesting.
Scandinavian. If you're not Scandinavian, you might want to get into British Airways. Are we going to look at that next, or what are we going to look next? We need to look at Airbus, because it's cut 13,000 jobs globally, which, it's interesting, because what you say, of course, but if you look at the chart, going down, okay, because this is not good for the industry. Airbus, of course, and Boeing is the other one that supplies the airline industry with its airplanes. British Airways and the others, they are not buying airplanes right now, okay? I remember reading that EasyJet a couple of months back, they were going to buy some airplanes, but of course they postponed that as well. So, but you're saying that, of course, that if they get rid of all of these costs, which, by the way, getting rid of staff costs a lot of money because you need to pay them off, right? You can't just get rid of them. So in the short term, bad, but in the long term, good. And of course, the stock market is all about the long term, which is very, very interesting. And so on this one here, then again, if you look at this, I think we wouldn't be buying here. I think we would be shorting, because you can see what's happening, especially if there's going to be another lockdown. So waiting for it to come back up to this level here before we sell short.
And the next one I think is Boeing as well, which is interesting. They all have a similar pattern. But I do think that in the short term, and that's what's so wonderful with trading and investing. You can short, make money as it goes down in the short term, but then in the long term, some of these might be very, very good buying opportunities. But I do think there's better opportunities. If we look at Apple and these big tech companies who are making loads of money at the moment, and these are losing billions.
Right, so this is the thing. People say, British Airways, I want to get in, they're very, very low. But if you compare it to, and this sometimes we forget, we're so in it, you don't see the wood for the trees, right? You say, which of these airlines are low? Forget about that. They're not making any money. Right, but if you have a look at, like you say, the Squares of this world, the Nvidias of this world, the which one?
Gold, Barrick's Gold as well, that we looked at.
Barrick's Gold, yeah, for example. But I mean, the tech companies we were talking about, right? So, for example, Apple. I mean, they are making a lot of money. You've got 5G coming out soon, so everybody's going to switch their phones. They want to get the new ones that can accept 5G. So all of these are the big trends. This trend seems to be coming down, so I am not buying. However, there's one that you wanted to show, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we can look at this is Norwegian Air Shuttle. So it's a smaller company, I guess, than British Airways, but it is also in a way backed by the Norwegian government. And for me, it's just fallen so much. Could it go to zero? I mean, I guess it could at the end of the day, but they're getting money from banks. They're getting money. Yeah, exactly.
Norwegian. Is the Norwegian government going to allow the Norwegian, standard flag bearer to go bust? Dennis thinks no.
No, I think no. So what I've done, I've put in a small amount of money at this point, just to maybe be part of the big upside. It is a bit of a gamble. So if you're asking me, would I put as much money into this as I would into Apple, into gold? The answer is no.
So you're punting, basically. This is a total gamble.
Yeah.
You're putting in a couple of hundred down here in the hope that it goes where? Where do you expect this to go?
What I'm going to do is, as soon as I'm up 100%, I'm taking out my initial investment, and then I'm just going to leave it to run. So I'm just looking for 100%.
See, most people don't do that, right? So what most people are going, right, and then I'm going to wait. And then you're in a 10-year buy and hold situation. What he's doing is he's going to wait till he makes 100%. Then take his initial, whatever he has invested out, whatever that is, 100, 200, 300, 400, whatever it is, take that out. The rest is free. It doesn't matter. He's not going to be looking at it on a weekly or daily basis, worrying about it. I think at some stage it might go down lower, of course, and this is not advice. That's very, very important indeed. This is what Dennis is doing. He's going to make some money on it, especially since I know that if it falls lower, you're going to get in again.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is according to a strategy. This isn't some knee-jerk reaction. It's falling, and then get in again. It's according to certain percentages that it needs to fall according to our VCA strategy.
And I have seen there is people in Norway Because you can see the people are writing all over the forums and stuff like that, and some have said that they've invested kind of almost their life savings into these kind of, and that's what people do. They just see the upside. They don't think about the downside and why it's down. So they invest all of their money into these kind of opportunities, which is madness. So you need to ask yourself, could you live without the money you're investing? Could you be fine with losing all of that with being able to sleep at night without worrying? If the answer is yes, then yes. So it is a gamble for me, but would I invest all of my money? No, and I wouldn't, because people just see the upside. Don't make that mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Dennis is looking for is maybe from this point here, because it is at 60 SEK, which is about 6 cents, right? He's looking at to go to maybe 12 or 24, right, to about here. Other people are like, I'm going to wait till it goes up here. Ridiculous. No strategy. Buy and hold. Doesn't work. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's the airline industry. Next. How will the presidential election affect the markets, and how can we profit from it? There's one word when it's coming up to the November presidential elections, and that is volatility. Because is Biden going to win? Is Trump going to win? Who is going to win? And there's always going to be, like, so for example, they just announced that they weren't going to have the second presidential debate, which is wow, so that's new. So all of this is going to affect the markets. However, what's affecting the markets the most, if you think out there what's happening, we talked about, the airlines, we talked about Boeing, we talked about Airbus, we talked about losing jobs, etc. and so forth. Markets should be going down, Dennis. But
Indeed.
Markets are going where?
It's going up.
The trend is up. The trend is up. Yes, you're going to have this volatility, like I said, and that's going to continue, but the trend is up. You can't go against the trend. I mean, well, you can because you're short at the moment. But let me tell you, Dennis, that is very dangerous. Let me tell you why. Because, and I hate saying this because it should go down, right? But because of the stimulus, let me read you some facts here. $9 trillion in stimulus injections. Guess how many in 2008? Well, you know this, right? Okay, so it's 2 trillion in 2008 when we had the financial crisis. This time around, it is 9 trillion. I want you, Dennis, to understand. By the way, what are you doing? You're short the market, are you?
Yes, exactly. So there's a few things I'm looking at, but this is only, I'm doing both, obviously. So I have positions for going long, but now yesterday I took a short position in the stock market.
Oh, that's interesting. So what, like sort of medium term you're long, but maybe in the very, very short term you're a little bit short.
Yes.
And you can do that when you're trading. So you can have, and this is kind of hedging, right? You can basically have a position long because you believe it's going to go up over the medium term or even long term. But in the very, very short term, if you see something like a reversal candle or something, then you can do a short term. So this is the 4-hour chart here of the S&P 500, the Standard & Poor 500 companies.
Exactly. So I'm going to show you what I did. So what I did, first of all, we broke this longer term upward trend that we got back in March.
Can we zoom in a little bit now, maybe?
We can. Let's see. I'm going to go over to this one because this is the one I've been trading. This is the NASDAQ, the tech companies, which is really the most bullish sector because that's where all the stimulus is going.
So why?
So it doesn't really make sense, does it?
No, not really.
So the reason I'm doing this is several. I'm looking at a couple of indicators, which is what the traders can use. It just indicates what might happen next.
Okay.
So
this is Fibonacci,
this is the
right?
Fibonacci. And one of my strategies is that around the 78.6 mark, if a couple of pieces fall into place, I can then go short or long, depending on what I'm looking at.
Right, because this could be the other way around, right? But on this way around, this is definitely a short.
Exactly. So I waited for a reversal candle, which just means that you have a green, and red. That means that it could be.
Which shaking out all the buyers, really. Shaking out all the buyers, yeah.
And what happened yesterday, which was very interesting, is that the put and call ratio, I know I'm using a lot of terms, but all it means is a lot of people are betting that the market will go a lot higher. Usually when that happens, it goes in the opposite direction. So I'm a little bit of a contrarian, only when I'm trading in the shorter term. This is a
lot of talk. Look, you are betting against.
I'm betting against
$9 trillion.
But with a stop loss.
Yeah, well, with a stop loss. But here, look. Well, let's just work this out. This is the 9. Okay, watch this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's a lot of money, I can tell you. 10, 11, 12 zeros. That is an insane a lot of money sloshing around in the markets, pushing it up, and you've got to trade what you see here, okay? And you are short the market, but where's your stop loss?
My stop loss is above the last high.
Okay, so here.
It's quite it's quite conservative, but what I'm gonna do, I'm enter with a small position.
So you're here, so this is your entry point, this is your stop loss.
So I'm risking 0.5% on this one.
So you're looking to make how much?
Yeah, I'm looking to make approximately 1.5 to 1 on this.
All right, well.
It's a high probability trade.
Okay, so you think it's a high probability trade. You're going to have to maybe go in several times here to get an average position, because let's say your average position ends up here, then this is your risk, and then you'll have reward, reward, reward. Now that would be good.
Exactly.
So you actually want it to go up.
Yeah, I want it to go up a bit more so I can enter another time.
You want it to go up and be selling short.
But what's important here to always use a stop loss, because in case I'm wrong, which I am from time to time, then I want to just have a small loss, and next time I might have a bigger win. I made some really good trades on oil where I got, for example, an 8 to 1, which means I made 8 more than my risk. So if I lose on this, it's still okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is really us making sure that we're taking advantage of that volatility. Look, it's going to go up, and then he's banking on it going down, and then he's going to take some profits, and then it's probably, he might, but like you say, you're also long as well. So it doesn't matter what happens. That is how to make money. Now, Dennis has been doing it for 7 years. This isn't his first rodeo. We're not suggesting you do that, but you will be able to do that as well. I hope you enjoyed this week's update. Please do comment below whether you agree or disagree with anything that we said. So for example, Norwegian Airlines, British Airways, right? These are flagship companies. So is the government going to allow them to go bust? Is it a good time to get in or stay away? What do you think? What do you think? I know what Dennis thinks. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you do hit that like button. But more importantly, please do subscribe to this channel so you get this information and profit from it. We will see you next week.